So yes, we are recording right now. We're also live streaming to YouTube as well. So we'll be able to have this recording for another follow-up email after the fact. I'll continue to let people in, but for the sake of time, let's just get started so we can utilize the time best to our advantage. My name is Lindsay Zilli. I'm the Director of Professional Learning for IDEA. We're here with Jessica from Skillstruck. We are using a platform called Kino. If you're not familiar with it, the chat feature is in the lower left-hand corner. It's called Spaces and Chat. You can chat to the whole group or send individual chats to individual people online as well. You may have your camera on or off. It is up to you. Please keep your microphone muted, though, for the time being. If you do have questions, use that chat feature, and we will make sure we get you some answers. And then we'll also share any important links right there in the chat, too. Jessica's got a couple that she's going to share, and I'll make sure you get those and get to the places you need to go. And then at the very end, I'll make sure I put your PDH link in the chat as well, and we'll help work through that process if you need it. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jessica take over and start talking a little bit about Skillstruck and what they have to offer.
All right. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, but while I do that, just bring this up. So we're going to talk a little bit today about computer science and how we can relate computer science to SEL. So I'm going to pull this up here. And we'll get going. So everyone can see that good? Perfect. So before we get started, though, just want to take a moment to introduce myself. So I am Jessica. I am a partnership manager with Skillstruck. So we are a K-12 computer science curriculum and platform. We'll dabble in it today. We're not here too much to talk about the actual platform, but more of experience it and connect it to SEL. So joined the Skillstruck team after being an innovation coach in the West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District. So I do live in Wisconsin. I spent 5 years as an innovation coach. I managed our common school funds. I taught students computer science, helped teachers integrate technology and project-based learning into the classroom, managed a library, did all of those things that many of you probably do as well. So had a lot of different experiences there, but my favorite part of my job was teaching computer science. So that kind of led me to this new journey. I live in Burlington, so pretty close there to Illinois. Not quite thrilled with this weather, but hopefully sometime soon we'll warm up. And I do have a dog and I'm a wife, and my dog also believes that coding is for everyone. You can see her over there by our backdrop. If you ever see me at a conference, that's what it's all about. But really wanted to speak to this topic today because I truly believe that integrating SEL into my classroom made me a better teacher. So really believe that practicing all of these topics, these skills, helps me be more patient, but also helps the students be more patient and more successful, and just overall a friendly learning environment, safe. So I actually, as part of my many hats, I started 2 days a week every morning teaching zones of regulation. So I co-taught this with 4th and 5th grade teachers, and I really brought in technology to this. So we made a lot of different emojis with different emotions. We created kind of some digital posters of our triggers. So did a lot of work with the zones of regulation, did a lot of creativity, which hopefully we can tap into today as we work through some computer science and SEL. So these are the things we're going to go over today. We have a goal. We will revisit some SEL skills. And then I have 4 activities that we will go over today. So there will be 4 activities that you'll be able to take right into the classroom and bring back to your students, have them practice this. If you're a coach, you could pass this along to teachers, but we'll have 4 activities unplugged and plugged in that you can do with students And at the end, we'll have some time to share any questions that you have. So the goal, why are we here today? So we are here today to talk about the connection between computer science and social emotional learning, to provide you with lesson activities for your classroom, and of course to support you. So all of these resources are so you can try this out, so you can feel supported in trying to combine these two topics together. And at any time, feel free to reach out to me if you need any support. So we are going to revisit some of these skills here. So SEL is the process through which children and adults acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitudes they need to recognize and manage their emotions, demonstrate caring and concern for others, establish positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and handle challenging situations constructively. So I am going to tie 4 of these individually into each of our activities, but with a little note here, making responsible decisions will be practiced throughout each of our experiences. So students constantly make responsible decisions, hopefully, when they are selecting language to be used in their websites or photos to be used or how they're handling situations. So just a little note there. Of course, many of these, all 4 of these, 5 of these can be intertwined in all of these, but we'll kind of break them up just a little bit as we go through. And then aside from those, computer science really ties very nicely into life skills. So students learn and practice a variety of life skills through computer science experiences. So when they're working together on code and group projects, providing feedback, they're collaborating. Critical thinking, I mean, students are constantly being critical thinkers every step of the way throughout coding experiences, finding bugs, finding solutions, coming up with their own who knows, but they are constantly being critical thinkers. Same thing with problem solving, bugs in code, trying to get things to work. And then my favorite piece about technology and computer science and coding and creating is just that it's such an outlet for students to be creative, for them to show their talents, to show their voice. Love that creativity piece. But we are going to jump into our activities. So all of my activities today, I'll go over our lesson objectives, and then we'll speak to an unplugged activity and activity that will be done on our platform. So you'll have multiple different things that you can dive into. So our first activity is going to be connecting algorithms and yoga. So this will be a way for students to be able to explain what algorithms are in kind of a different way and provide some examples. They'll use yoga poses to demonstrate algorithms. Our unplugged activity is going to be our yoga poses, and our platform activity will be going through our night puzzles in our elementary platform, which is called Launchpad. So if you hear me speak to Launchpad, that is what I am referring to. So after those 3 components of just introducing you to those objectives, the unplugged, and I'm just going to call it a plugged in activity, we also have some steps along the way. So these slides will really speak to the steps to make this happen. I have language you can use directly. So I'll walk through our steps today for algorithms and yoga. So you can introduce this activity by just having a discussion. How many of you have ever done yoga before? Have you ever heard of any yoga poses? Making a list of that for your students. And then really connecting it to why do people do yoga? And hopefully connecting that to maybe calm down, to relax, and tying that into being able to take some mindful moments throughout the coding experience for students. So then what we're going to do is we're going to start tying that into algorithms. So today I'm going to teach you that there are steps we take to complete a task, and this has a fancy name called an algorithm. First, we are going to use algorithms to do yoga, and then we will connect it to technology. So the next steps are going to be to do a group yoga experience. Now, since we're virtual and I don't want to embarrass myself, I won't make you do yoga here today, but I will walk through just the yoga that you could do with your students. So you'll do a group yoga, but before that, you should model it step by step for students. So just on your own as the teacher, go through step 1, 2, 3, and then do it all together. And this will be the group yoga that I recommend because our additional yoga experiences do require you to know a mountain pose. So you'll go through each of these steps together, kind of modeling through each step along the way, but keeping in mind you're going to connect this back to algorithms and some sequences in coding. So later on, you're going to maybe start at step 3 rather than 1 and really connect to, if you do not do things in order, they will not work out for you. So after you do the group yoga, I have some additional yoga resources for you as well. So if you would like, you can have some additional poses to kind of put around your classroom. Maybe students can do a yoga gallery walk and they could do a little bit more. This will especially be helpful if you want some areas when students are coding and maybe struggle a little bit to go find a space, do a little yoga pose, hopefully refresh themselves to come back. So these additional resources for you are just some additional poses that you can have around your classroom. And this can be for more of a connected experience. Maybe you want to go around and take pictures of students doing these poses to kind of put with these so they kind of know what to expect a little bit. But those are just some additional ones for you. But I do recommend, of course, doing the group one together. So after you do some yoga, whether it be just the group or all of those, you will bring your students back together, asking them who remembers that fancy word from earlier. Hopefully they remember algorithm. And you will ask them, what was it like to have to follow the steps? Do you think you could have done the whole yoga if you had skipped a step or two? Like, would the outcome have been the same? Would you have fallen down? Would you have been successful? So showing that. And then as a teacher, you could even maybe model, maybe you're doing the yoga sitting down and you're not following those steps. So trying to make that connection between those steps having to be done in order for it to be successful. So down here, this last little statement, just like in yoga, computers follow certain steps or instructions to make something happen, and this is called an algorithm. So then you can go in and visit some of our vocabulary. So these slides here are pulled directly from our lesson of algorithms in our platform, which you will see in a moment. But you'll go through and you'll introduce them to the language of an algorithm. If you've already taught algorithms, like if you are a computer science teacher, you can perhaps just refresh their memory. But what I really, really love to do, I used to teach computer science, so I really make these connections along the way. But what I really love to do is make sure that you're tying in real life examples throughout the experience so students can understand why they're doing this, why they're learning this, and how it can relate to their everyday life. So come up with some real life examples of algorithms and then go through our sequence definition. This is an important part of algorithms. So sequencing is the order that things happen, kind of go through that definition, and again, try to connect this into a real experience, tying that directly back to the yoga. And then it will be time to make our technology connection. And we will do this by actually practicing algorithms and some sequencing with coding. So after this, you will have students log in to our Skillstruck Code Playground and complete some of our puzzles. And along the way, encourage students to practice a yoga pose or two if they need a mindful moment as they code. So I'm going to pause there for a moment just to bring up our platform, which I had on a different window. So I apologize if you're seeing a lot of my tabs. But we will open up our platform here. So this is our Launchpad platform. Now, I'm not going to go too far into our algorithms puzzles. I'll just show you how to get there because I would like to spend time today showing you more of our HTML experience because that may be a little bit newer to you than maybe some of our block coding. But after you do yoga, you're going to connect this into algorithms in the platform. So I will share this link with you when we get into some HTML, but this will be our platform for this experience. And this is just our free code playground. So you won't see everything that we have, but you'll see what you need to make these connections between SEL and computer science happen. So when you get in here, there's going to be 2 lessons. The first lesson is going to be sequencing and algorithms. And if you didn't speak to like a full group lesson of going through algorithms, like with those slides, all the information that you need to know about this will be here in the platform for the students. So if you have a bit more independent learners, you could have them go through and maybe just learn this without the slides. Totally up to you and what's best for your students. It can be read to them too, so text to speech. We know that's a lot of text and not everyone can read all of that on their own. But this first lesson here will be our sequencing and algorithms right there. So the next part of it is to go into the puzzles. So this is where we'll really practice going through algorithms. So once you get into here, you will have all these puzzles that you can go through. I recommend starting with algorithms, especially tying this directly back into our yoga. But after that, there will be other ones that you can work through as well for some additional work for students. But as we go into algorithms, the goal is to get our knight to the red door. So you'll go through and you'll make sure that you get your knight to the red door. I would recommend modeling this first algorithm together as a full group, making sure they understand the purpose. And if you need a little additional support, you can bring the textbook back at any time and you can view some instructions over here. But this is just your typical drag and drop experience running our code. What I am going to show you is it provides students some immediate feedback. So if they make a mistake, they will have ways to kind of discover what that mistake was. So they can pull down on the left side and kind of view, so the knight turned right to face left, but I can't move left, the path is black. Maybe this red color will trigger some students to need to do some yoga for a mindful moment, who knows? But that is what you can expect there. And then if you do have some more advanced coders, like you have been doing this already, you can change the language over into script and you can actually have students type that out instead. So that's how you can tie in yoga and algorithms together with the platform. So I'm going to head back over here and we'll continue. So on the slides, there will also be login directions for you to display for your students. So accessing our code playground, which we'll practice together in a moment, but all of the step-by-step directions are here for students. So all they'll need to do is enter their first and last name or initial. This is not collected, this is not shared anywhere. So for privacy, you could have them put a J and a K or whatever it may be. And they won't have to enter anything other than that. Today, if you, a teacher, coach, whoever you may be, today as you log in, it will prompt you to enter your email. That was just so I had resources to share, but after today, I will make sure to remove that, so all students have to do is put in some letters. So these will be those directions, the login, puzzles, algorithms. So you'll have that there. Our second activity is going to be having a growth mindset and putting this into practice through coding and things like that. So our objectives here are that students will be able to identify the difference between handling situations constructively versus non-constructively, and we will practice having a growth mindset. So our unplugged activity for this one is going to be some blob scenarios. So what we call these fun little characters you see are the Skillstruck blobs. So that is what you will see and what we call those. So we'll go through some blob scenarios, and then as they continue coding through maybe our night puzzles or maybe even later in HTML, continue to encourage them to have that growth mindset. So you'll teach, you probably have already taught what a growth mindset is, but if you haven't, these are some resources to teach through, and in the speaking notes, you'll see some additional resources for you. Create a list of sentence stems that promote having a growth mindset for your classroom. Again, maybe you already have this in place, maybe you don't, but this will be important for our unplugged activity. And then we will jump into our unplugged activity. So this will be our growth mindset featuring the skill struck blobs. So step one will be students will read our scenario cards and decide whether or not the blob is showing their growth mindset. And if the answer is no, to decide what they could do or say to practice that or improve what they've maybe said here. So then they'll discuss their answer with a partner, a group, the full class. There's multiple ways you can do this. You could have students do this individually, in a group, with a partner, whatever it may be. And then they'll read the next ones and repeat. So there will be 5 scenarios for you to kind of pass along to students. So for example, Turquoise Blob is on the Skillstruck platform trying to get the knight, who we just saw, to the red door. They are struggling with their algorithm and blurt out, "I can't do this." So is Turquoise Blob showing their growth mindset, and what could they change? So it's just an example of our scenarios, but they'll go through this little activity here. And then I did leave one blank in case you wanted to create your own or have them. So those will be our unplugged activity, kind of get them thinking maybe some things that they shouldn't say, and hopefully coming up with some reasons or some different things that they could say when they struggle. And that's where those sentence stems will come into place to really help them through. After doing that unplugged activity, you can discuss those scenarios and add the sentence stems. Like if you come across any new ones through the activity, you can add those to your little chart of sentence stems, and then have them log into the code playground and practice having that growth mindset while they code. So that'll be a similar login experience, logging in, going into those puzzles, or perhaps you want to introduce growth mindset through HTML. What I will say is we do introduce HTML in 3rd grade here at Skillstruck, which is a little different, but we do so in a block-based manner. So it may be beneficial for you to really bring in that growth mindset if they've never learned HTML before, because it can be a little bit challenging. So just a little side note. But we'll see what this experience looks like with HTML through activity 3. So activity 3 is gratitude and HTML. So we are going to identify things we're grateful for and create a basic HTML website. Our unplugged activity is going to be to create a list of people, places, or things that you are grateful for. And then our platform activity is going to be HTML. We're going to complete the gratitude challenge in our launch pad, so elementary, or our always be grateful challenge in secondary. And I'll go over what those look like in just a little bit. So here you're going to have activity steps as well. So introduce finding things that they're grateful for, why it's important, and then you're going to have a whole nother experience where you'll teach students some HTML. So just clicking through some of these steps here, I will walk through these HTML steps and kind of some of this language. It may be new, so I want to make sure you have the resources and some things to say if you are diving in for the very first time. So before we can practice HTML, we need to learn what it is, and I have slides for you to use. So HTML uses tags to make titles, pictures, and information that you see on a website. HTML elements are made up of an opening tag and a closing tag with content sandwiched between them. Okay, these are great slides to bring up for your students if you're new. So HTML tags start and end with less than and greater than symbols with a tag name between those symbols. An opening tag looks like this, the less than, H1, and greater than. A closing tag has a backslash before the tag name. So there will be a backslash before that letter, and then the complete element will look like this. We'll have an opening tag, some content there, some text, hello world, and a closing tag. And we're going to practice this on the platform so you can get comfortable with some of these tags. So we have an unplugged experience for you as well. So in order to get students a little bit more comfortable with tags, we have a little activity that you can do. So we will go here. I'll show you these. This might make a little bit more sense, but we'll have these here. So we have H1s through H6s. We've got openings and closings. Then we have a paragraph tag. What you'll do is you can print these out, cut them up, and then you will pass them to different students, and they'll have to go around the room and find their opening or closing. Now I know that there's only 7 different kind of categories here. So there's 2 H1s, opening, closing, things like that. So if you have more students than that, just print off multiple versions and just make sure students find multiple different classmates. But what they'll do is they'll go find their opening or closing tag, and they'll make sure that when they find their partner that they tell them something that they are grateful for today. So tying that directly back into gratitude, giving them exposure to what the different tags look like, getting them moving around as well. So that'll be a little unplugged activity for you. And then after that, what they'll notice is that there is going to be, through that unplugged activity, there's H1s, there's H2s, all the way through H6, and they may not understand what all of those mean. So the next step will be to have them become comfortable with a header hierarchy. So there is a header hierarchy in HTML, quite an important concept as we start building websites. But H1 makes your text the biggest, and H6 makes your text the smallest. So introducing this hierarchy, and then we'll actually have students practice this in the platform before they work on their gratitude challenge. So the next step, and I'll kind of just show these next steps through our platform, but we are going to log in, we are going to get into our code playground, and we are going to do our biggest to smallest challenge, and then I'll just show you where you'll find the gratitude challenges. So for this one, I am going to make sure that I give you the link in the chat. Oh, that might have just been to you, Lindsay, not the whole group. Okay, let's see. Did that go in there? All right. So if you would like to follow along, if you're not too busy or if you're not driving or whatever it may be, but if you would like to follow along, I am going to model this header hierarchy in our Launchpad platform. So in the secondary platform, it'll just be a little bit different of a style, and you'll have all the resources you need to work through that in there. But once you get into our Launchpad, and I'll just walk through a little bit of what you'll see while you get logged in. But once you're in Launchpad, okay, we already saw lesson 1 earlier. So we saw the sequences and algorithms. We went through the puzzles. What you'll see here is there will be a lesson 2, which will be an intro to HTML. So right now we're starting out with just headers. Later, you'll get into text colors and fonts. So that's where you'll find everything that you need to know to teach some of these concepts as we get a little bit deeper. But we're going to work through this intro to HTML. So what's really nice is we just talked through H1 through H6 and that header hierarchy. That's just reinforcing the learning here in the text. And then if they were to click this try it box, they could see what that looks like. So they can see that H1 is the biggest and the H4 there would be the smallest. So after you talk through headers, HTML activities will be found in our challenges. So that orange, I'll kind of go back and show that again. It'll be orange with a light bulb is where they'll get into their HTML challenges. And we're going to, of course, do this gratitude challenge because we're talking all about being grateful for things. But before that, just to get comfortable with a header hierarchy, we'll do headers biggest to smallest. And so this challenge, students will make a list of header tags and they'll create 6 from biggest to smallest. So this will be a time for them to practice on the platform. Now, something that I will speak to is we recommend third grade, maybe even fourth grade, maybe even fifth grade if your students have never done HTML before, we allow this to be done in a block-based format. So it's a little less scary. They're comfortable dragging and dropping. It's just a different experience for them to get started with HTML. So if that sounds like a good fit for your students, what you'll do is you'll have them click on their profile, their little icon in the right corner, and select blocks, drag and drop, and you will click save. And I have all of these directions screenshotted, so if you didn't get all of that, don't worry. But what they'll be able to do then is drag and drop these blocks to practice HTML. So for this one, we're doing 6 header tags. So I'm going to drag header level 1. I'll click back on my blocks. I'll bring in my text. I'll click in that bubble there. And I will type in my text. What's really, really nice is, yes, they're doing this in drag and drop, but they're also seeing it in the bottom corner, all typed out in script for them. So as they maybe work through 4th and 5th grade, or maybe throughout just one grade level, that hopefully will not be too scary for them because they've been being exposed to what that looks like. The other helpful hint here is they can bring their textbook back at any time, using these different things as a reference as they work. But for this, we are just doing different header tags with some text. So you'll go through there and make sure you do 1 all the way to 6. The other thing that I'll show you is you can do a little mix and match. So I can go over here and I can type out my code there. I can sync my blocks and it'll toss a block up there for me too. So maybe you want to have 3 with blocks and 3 with text, whatever it may be, but they'll go through. Personally, I am a little bit quicker with typing it out than I am dragging and dropping because I have had a lot of HTML practice lately. But they'll put in all of their tags, they'll submit their code, the platform will grade it for them and say, you're fabulous, you are complete, great job. If they didn't meet all those requirements, it would tell them you're not quite done yet and give them a hint to continue to improve, probably promoting some good moments to reflect and have a little bit of a growth mindset to keep going. So that's really nice there. After you do biggest to smallest, so just getting them comfortable with header tags, you'll go in and you'll do the gratitude challenge, doing 5 header tags, naming one thing that they're grateful for in each. For this one, it just requires 5 header tags, and they can do all the same size, a mixture, doesn't matter as long as they have a header tag with some text inside of there. So that will be how we do our gratitude challenge and some HTML in the Launchpad platform. I will go back to our presentation here though, and we're going to keep going. And for our next activity, we will talk through our secondary platform, which is Voyage. Please know that in activity 3, you can be in Voyage as well. And as you go through, because you'll get this presentation, as you go through, I have it step-by-step laid out for you of what to do in each platform with examples for you as well. So we didn't go through secondary for the gratitude challenge, but all those directions will be in there for you. So they'll go through and you'll get a feel for what this is all about shortly. But all those directions are there so you can be successful. And our last activity here will be words of encouragement. So demonstrating a caring and concern for others. Our objectives, our students will be able to provide words of encouragement to their peers by providing feedback on a basic HTML website, and students will help solve bugs in peers code. So this activity can be used in the puzzles in Launchpad, in HTML in Launchpad, or in HTML in our secondary platform. Our unplugged activity is going to be creating a list of encouraging words and phrases, and not listed here will be a little bit of a feedback walk, which we'll speak to shortly. The platform activity will be HTML, sentences about me, which we'll see, or of course, continuing through night puzzles, encouraging students along the way. So for this, just speak to how it is important for us to be helpful and encouraging to our peers, creating a safe learning environment. It's okay to make mistakes, but we also want to also give some feedback, which we'll kind of see in just a moment. So after just talking through that, you'll create a list of words of encouragement for your classroom. It can be done digitally, can be done on an anchor chart, whatever it may be. Again, maybe you already have this going on, so you could just refer to that. But next, it's important that we help our peers improve their work. So this is a big component of this words of encouragement lesson when we get into HTML. So talking to students about how we want to be constructive, we want to be helpful, direct. If you are a project-based learning school, you're probably very familiar with feedback. But if you're not, this is a good place to maybe give it a shot. So I have some examples here of some constructive feedback to give students and some non-constructive, and this kind of relates directly to the activity. So I really like that you have multiple different fonts in your website. You'll kind of know what this is all about in just a little bit, but just speaking to this. Some of your fonts are a little hard to read. Maybe replace cursive with Arial. Okay, so you want to encourage students to be giving feedback about our websites, how it looks, but of course in a nice constructive way. So kind of going through those examples. And then what you'll do is together as a class, you'll create a list of sentence starters for providing feedback to your peers. Again, digitally, anchor chart, whatever it may be. And then the first part of this will be practicing with puzzles. So if you're going to go the puzzle route, so if you're going to just continue working through events, variables, conditionals, there's a lot of puzzles for you to access with this Code Playground link. So if you're going to do words of encouragement with puzzles, you can kind of maybe skip through the feedback. The feedback is strictly towards HTML. So that's how that will differ a little bit. And while students do the puzzles, you'll encourage students to keep going when they struggle. So if you're going to do the puzzle route, here are your directions that you'll need. But if you're going to go the more HTML route, these are our activity steps when we get here. So after going through words of encouragement, after talking about feedback, you'll get into the platform and you'll practice with some of our challenges. So if you are an upper elementary is where I recommend this. So third grade or above can handle HTML, probably in that block-based manner or text-based based on your learners. So upper elementary will be able to do these HTML experiences. Both platforms, the challenge is called Sentences About Me. And you'll encourage students to keep their sentences very positive. What I really like about this activity and why I kind of selected this is not only is this experience having students encourage each other, but it's also having students kind of thinking about themselves in positive ways. Coming up with sentences about them can be very encouraging, positive, good reflection. So I really like just this whole activity. But while students code through HTML, through the sentences about me, it may be a little bit challenging. So making sure we have those words of encouragement, making sure we have a growth mindset will all be helpful tools for you as you work through. And then after students complete their challenge, which we will do together in a moment, but after students complete their challenge, I'd like you to have them do a feedback walk where they walk around the room and give constructive feedback on their peers' work. So we're going to have some sentences about us. They're going to have different fonts and different text colors. You can even go a little bit further into secondary. I'll show you some tricks to finding additional HTML work. But have them do a feedback walk, okay, trying to help students improve their work while being constructive and kind. And you can do this verbally or on Post-it notes. So I used to do feedback on a Post-it note where I would write on the back of it and then stick it somewhere where then the students couldn't see what I wrote and they couldn't read what each other wrote. So they had to come up with their own ideas. So always a good little trick when you're doing feedback. So in the upper elementary, I'm just going to show these directions. And then in secondary, we're going to actually get into the platform. But in upper elementary, you'll have them log in, same thing. But I would encourage you to read through some of these lessons. So for this activity, they will need to know text colors and fonts. So they'll need to know that information, which is all in the platform that you'll be able to see. And then they'll go into challenges and they'll go into sentences about me. And then here's an example for you, including this is all the code, so you'll kind of get a feel for what that code looks like with a text color and a different font. So if you've never taught this before, good little example for you to look at. And same thing, they can do this in blocks as well. So we do have that style attribute block all available. So again, third graders, they can drag and drop these blocks and give this a shot. So that's a resource. But we're going to get into secondary now, which I will post the link in the chat if you are following along. I know I'm going through a lot today, so you may need to watch this again and pause as needed. But we will get into our secondary platform. I may just need to log in here really quick. So same thing, that link in the chat, you can open up first and last name and you'll be good to go. So you're seeing a little bit of things that I have going on right now, but I will get us a clean environment here. So what you will do for this, when you log in, you will not see any code if you've never coded before. But this is what you will see when you first log in. So on the left side are all of our lessons. In the middle, we will code. You may have just seen what I was doing up here. These are our project files. So you'll have students, you can have them create a new folder and then a new file for their different projects. For the free code link that you will be accessing, if you share this link with students, which you are completely free to do so, you may want to encourage them to copy and paste their code into a separate document, because if you share computers or iPads or whatever it may be, their work may not save. So just a little public service announcement, they can copy and paste their code in a separate document. And then if they revisit this later, like if they're not quite done with their project, they can just paste it back into the editor, pick up where they left off. So that's a little trick behind our little free code playground there. But in here, we're going to go through and work on our sentences about me. So on the left here, all of our lessons. So we are working through HTML1. So some of the other activities that I spoke to earlier, when you get into the secondary platform, you'll just go through basics and headers and you'll find it there. But for sentences about me, we will open up fonts and we will click start checkpoint. We will go down to challenges. Don't worry, I have a screenshot of every step of the way for you. And then we will open up sentences about me. So this is what students will work through. They'll write 5 sentences about you using 5 header tags. You will, of course, encourage them to pick positive things about them to share. And what they're going to do is they're going to choose a color and a font that goes along with the sentences. And on each header, put the code and all of that, the style first. So if you've never taught this before, all the resources you need will be in these lessons. So students could work at their own pace, or you could do some of this together as a group, but you'll need to know text colors. So you may want to visit the text colors lesson. Same thing, well, you'll have done headers if you did the gratitude challenge from earlier, but that is where you can find some additional resources. If you want to continue to push students further, you could have them add a background color. You could have them add an image to their sentences about them. So just know that all of these are available to you for you to work wherever your students are at. But on the left, they'll get all of the information they need about fonts. These try it boxes will show them different fonts and things like that. So helpful for them to visit that as well. I have found that students are not as familiar with all these fonts that I was growing up. But they'll do the sentences about me challenge, and they'll code in the middle. So I'll just walk through one line of code for you today, just so you can see what adding the font and the text color looks like. So the first one is going to be H1, and I'll do style. And the header number doesn't matter for this. So if students want to do all H1s, all H6s, whatever it may be, they can kind of pick. But when we are adding different attributes to our different headers, we are going to, right after H1, so right after the number 1, we're going to do a space and we're going to type in style, and we're going to do equals, and we'll do quotation, quotation, and then we'll go back inside of those quotations and we'll do color, a colon, and then type the color, and then we'll do a semicolon. And I'm just going to model it this way for now, because I find that it is helpful to do one step at a time with students rather than having them do a text color and then do a font, especially if they've never done this before. But my name is Jessica, and then I'll close that up with a closing tag. Another thing you may want to do if you are just beginning is maybe you want to have them have an opening. You want to have them type in, here, I'll do the second line. I do love to sing, but I'm not very good. So you may want to have them have an opening, their text, and then their closing before they do anything with styles. That just might help them organize their brain. Now, I love to have a space in between my codes. I just find it is better to be organized that way. It's easier for me to navigate, but that's a preference as well. So after we do the style, and I'll just do that again here because I want to show you another trick. So color, we also have a color picker. So over here, you'll see a palette, and they can kind of go through, find whatever color they'd like, click copy, and they can paste that instead of writing out that code here. And then I need my quotation marks. So you could see there, if I don't do my double quotations right away, I often forget them, and then I have a bug in my code. But just a side note as well. But after that they have their colors in, then what they can do is go back up, and you'll notice here I had a semicolon right away. This again is to prepare myself to not have bugs later. But after that semicolon, you will do font hyphen family. You will do a colon, and we'll do impact. And since we're only doing a color and a font today, you don't really need the semicolon, but sometimes it's helpful to just have it there in case you want to add anything later. So you will go through, write 5 sentences about you using the header tags. You'll make sure each sentence starts with these starters, adding a color and a font. And then after students do all of that, that is when you will open up and have a little bit of a feedback walk. So maybe students' colors are hard to see or their fonts are hard to read, and that's when you'll have that experience for them as well. All right. And like I said, there are lots of other HTML things if you want to make that a little bit even more jazzy for you. So background colors, images, marquees are pretty fun. You can have them spice that up a little bit more. So after that, we are going to wrap things up here. So like I said before, all of the directions to get to those challenges are available to you. I have examples here of code. You could take, if you are like short on time, but you want your own example, you can look at this, throw in your name, but all of these examples are there for you. And then there are multiple more challenges in that Voyage platform that you can do to tie in SEL. So back in that, I'll kind of pull that back up again here. So at the bottom of HTML1, there will be HTML projects. Again, if you're like, oh, this is super cool, I have a history thing that I need to do, feel free, jump in, do a history website while you're at it. But if you really are like, I really want to focus on SEL, there are multiple more challenges for you to choose from. Color check-ins, finding a calming space, goal setting. Okay, maybe you need to have some goal setting to get through your last month of school, but there's multiple different challenges you can grab there as well. And for these, they'll kind of lay out what is to be done. So add some images, paragraphs. So just as the teacher, make sure you visit some of those requirements first to see if there's maybe a lesson you need to teach beforehand. So those are there for you to use as well. But going back to here, just wrapping up, I know we probably didn't have many of examples to share out, so we'll skip through that part. But what to expect next, you will be receiving all the resources from today. So this presentation, this recording, and then those links to share with students will be available for you, so you can do this right with them. Again, Launchpad will be elementary, so you'll see that language, and I'll make sure to put elementary by it, and then Voyage is secondary. And then if along the way you need any support using these resources, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll make sure the email is on the slide, but I'll make sure that you have that as well. But feel free to reach out if you had any questions along the way. If you've never taught HTML and you want to, but you're a little scared, I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one, walk you through this, and make sure you have everything that you need. So before we go, we can kind of spend some time if you have any questions, any comments, anything you're wondering about, feel free to put them in the chat or speak out.
Jessica, that was amazing. I love that you started with vocabulary. You built in those unplugged activities for that prerequisite knowledge and that like grounding activity. Then from there built in the CS and the SEL kind of interwoven activities. I think that is, for me, that speaks to the way that I would feel most comfortable teaching these sorts of lessons. So I love that progress.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm dropping the link for the PDHs in the chat just now, so everybody hang on. I'm not fast at typing like you.
Well, while you're doing that, I just wanted to thank everyone for their time. Thanks for joining. Thanks for everything you do every day. From a previous teacher that also was so many other things for our students. I really appreciate everything that you do for students, for your school, and if I can support you in any way, please reach out. But thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to learn a little bit more.
Thank you. This was fantastic. We'll definitely get you in touch with Jessica if you're looking to incorporate some more CS into your SEL curriculum. I know all of the buzzwords and things right now. And then tomorrow you can look for this recording and all those resources as promised. So thank you all for joining us today. Make sure to grab your PDH and look out for that email.
You had that privately to me, so I made sure to throw that out in that chat.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No problem.